Hey everybody, this is BK Kids Club. I am going to go ahead and do a Gemini sideboard sort of primer, theory, how I sideboard. Look, I'm not the best Yu-Gi-Oh player in the world, um, so my sideboard theory may be different than yours. Your sideboarding may be more effective than mine. This is just what I do, so hopefully this helps. Maybe it'll let you understand my thought process behind Gemini a little bit. Um, Alright, so I'll start with a card by card, and then I'll go into how I'll sideboard against certain matchups. So I'll even look up specific deck lists and what would be effective, what cards go well. Alright, so start with Fossil Dyna. Fossil Dyna is a very good card against decks that special summon a lot. We're going to see that in, like, Dragon Turbo. We're going to see that in Titanial decks. Against the mirror match, we put those in so that we can flip our Fossil Dynas and kill their board. Very useful against frogs. The normal summon that you can put out there, and then you have things to protect it, like Bottomless Trap Hole or Scrap Iron or Gemini Spark. So if you get to protect this against frogs, and they can't really develop a board, that's a really useful floodgate. Grand Mole. Grand Mole has really unique synergy in the deck because you play Ultimate Offering, and it turns into a 500 life point Compulse. Very useful card. Sided in against decks where you're going to be able to take care of their extra deck threats. Specifically, the one that it really is most useful for is like Heroes, because they go into Ab Zero, and that's a really efficient out to Absolute Zero. You can summon it, return it, he nukes the field, but now it's in your hand, so you've lost no resources. Gets under Bottomless, something you can search with Sangan. Sided in against decks that are going to go into their extra deck heavily, like Vayu Turbo, Zombies, Hamster Raikou Kaius decks. It's a really efficient out. You can just keep summoning it and get rid of their Hamster Raikou. So I like Grand Mole. It has a lot of utility. Now, Titanial, if you have it in the main, great. Titanial provides the value, if it's in the main, of giving you a much higher ceiling in the ability that you're able to combo off on game one. So if you open up, Lone Fire Supervise in game one, and say you have like a Starlight Road, then that's a really safe board for you to go Giga, Supervise, just get Titanial. And then you have a board where they can't kill your board, they can't target anything, and then next turn you have a Giga with Supervise, so you can go into an even bigger board. That'll be Giga Nettles Titanial, and that alone is 8,800 life points. So, you can OTK with the board from just Giga, get Titanial turn one. It also turns off targeted removal like Raikou, Kaius, Brain Control, Phoenix Wind Blast, Book of Moon, a lot of the things that the deck really has difficulty with. So at the cost of you're going to brick with this card in your hand 15% of games, you get the upside of game one, I have the ability to play a stronger board. So I'm kind of, I'm in a love-hate relationship with this card. Is it in, is it out? Do I want to brick with it? Do I want to have the upside of having it in game one? So far, honestly, my honest answer is I like it in the main. I do brick every now and then. The deck has bricks, but Titanial just gives you another tool in your toolbox, and that's kind of what the deck is. It's a toolbox deck. And the fact that I'm able to go stop targeted removal on top of the whole suite of level 8 in the extra deck, there's so many resources you can go into with Lone Fire Supervise that having a Titanial in the main is very useful. So, Titanial in the main, Titanial on the side, as long as it's somewhere in the 55, that's fine. I understand both ways of thinking. I think I'll probably, even if this is a list, I might just cut Upstart and put this in here, and then we'll figure out another card to go from the side deck. Anyway, next we'll go Prohibition. Prohibition's kind of the reason I have it in the deck is because it kind of filled a hole that I had against two difficult matchups. So one of my least favorite decks to play against is Gladiator Beasts, And Prohibition is very strong against Gladiator Beast, because if you call Bestiari, then they've lost their ability to pop your back row with their main deck engine. So yes, they can still MST it, yes, they can still Dust Tornado it, but they have to specifically draw an out card. They can't just draw Glad Beast Test Tiger, Glad Beast attack your soldier. They can't just use their engine to destroy your back row. And this deck is all about defending its back row. So Prohibition's a very strong side against Gladiator Beast, which is one of my least favorite matchups. The deck isn't necessarily... It's probably like 45-55. It just feels so miserable because Gladiator Beasts are always miserable to play against when they're, snowballing their advantage and you just see the game slip out of your control. The deck also commits to the board a lot. That's how I play the deck. I'm playing a lot of back row. A common thing is, I'll set a soldier, set 4 back row, Yurgo. And when they're able to pick the board apart with a Bestiari here and a Geyserus there and then make a Heraclinos, it's very tough. So this is kind of a proactive way of stopping it. You'll see a lot of the sideboard, because I play that commit to the board strategy, are Floodgate cards. Either Floodgate cards or cards that are giving me a immediate +1. Both of which can win games. So that's why Prohibition is in there, mainly. Also, you can call Treeborn Frog, and they're not able to get their Treeborn Frogs back from the graveyard anymore, cutting off that graveyard resource. It's a huge advantage. If you play against Hero Beat, you can also call Alias. If they're not able to summon their Alias, which is the main part of their deck, they're always going to go E-Call into Stratos to get Alias, and that's their main way of playing the game. And if you stop that, they can no longer use it as XYZ material. They can no longer summon it. They can't use Gemini Sparks. It can put their whole half of their deck dead. Or, say they Future Fusion on turn 1, you can go Prohibit Absolute 0, and they're not able to summon it on their turn 3. So there's a lot of utility against that deck. There's also a lot of weird decks in the format. Every now and then you're going to be at a tournament, and you're going to be in the bottom tables, or you're going to be in the early rounds, and you may verse Chainburn, Exodia, Reversal Quiz, OTK, I don't know, some dumb shit. And if you there's a lot of cards that don't do anything versus Exodia or Chainburn. So if you have one more card that's relevant, I'll call Just Desserts, or I'll call Secret Barrel, and I've negated one card that they could have drawn. Rather than a Scrap Iron Scarecrow, which is never going to get used, or a Solemn, which is going to cost me half my life points against Chainburn, so you side that out. Alright, moving on. Dust Tornado. So we'll just kind of lump these two together. Dust Tornado and 7 Tools are for back row fight decks. Any deck that is very back row heavy, so your Gladiator Beast, your Vayu Turbo, your Black Wings, your your Hero Beat, and a lot of games where they're going to be setting their traps and counter traps in Starlight Roads, and you're going to be setting your traps and counter traps in Starlight Roads. If you're able to end a chain on a 7 Tools, generally that's going to be a huge impact on the game, because usually this is stopping a huge play. Like, I'll go get Gigaplant and they bottomless, and then I 7 Tools that bottomless, and now I'm able to develop a board, and they're not able to stop it because I stopped their one card that was going to be pivotal to turning that game around. So again, the point of the deck is really to develop a strong board, to commit to the board. Sometimes in some matchups that's very difficult. Sometimes you have to play differently, and you can't commit as hard because you didn't draw a Starlight Road. You can't play as hard in the Heavy Storm. There are times where the deck can't play as it intends to. You draw poorly sometimes. But these are for back row fight decks, where you're going to be fighting against all their back row to get your combo pieces going, and you're going to be needing those Dust Tornadoes and those 7 Tools to fight your opponent's back row. Iron Wall. Iron Wall is such a good card. Up until recently, it was in main. Iron Wall is really good against Hero Beat. I think Hero Frog is the best deck that it is good against. They're not able to use their Caiuses, and they're not able to use their Miracle Fusions. So they're not able to use either half of their deck in the most efficient way they want to. It's very good. It also, if you're playing against the traditional suite of removal spells, that's typically going to be your Eternal Tribute, Mirror Force, Dimensional Prison, Bottomless Trap Hole. If you have Iron Wall and Starlight Road, specifically, this turns off Bottomless Trap Hole, Dimensional Prison, and this turns off Torrential Tribute, Mirror Force. So you can play into so many boards that are playing the traditional suite of removal spells with just these two resources. It really makes your board a lot safer. Stardust Dragon Iron Wall is so hard for them to get over. They can't Caius it. They can't. There's just a lot of things they're not able to do. Now, if I do side these in, I'm typically siding out one of my Bottomless Trap Holes. If I have two of these Iron Walls, I don't want to have the non-bow of getting both of them and not being able to activate my Bottomless when I need to. So, never have more than one Bottomless in if you have two Iron Walls in the deck, typically. If you need it, I understand. Every matchup is different, and, sideboard the way that you think is intuitive. But typically, I take out one Bottomless if I put in two of these. Light Imprisoning Mirror. Light Imprisoning Mirror is against, light decks. There's a whole suite of decks that run Lila, Raikou. You can stop that package pretty efficiently with one Light Mirror. There are Fairy Lightsworn decks. Having a Floodgate against that deck, which is actually pretty effective against you. They have a lot of things that can pick your back row apart in like their Lilas and their Celestias and their JDs and their Luminas for Lilas, and it's nice just to be able to stop all that. And if you have like Light Mirror Stardust Dragon, good luck to them. They'll Honest is usually they're out. And if you snuff that out with a Scrap Iron Scarecrow or a Gemini Spark or a Mirror Force or something, that usually is the game. Shadow Mirror, only one. So the reason there's one Shadow Mirror is because a core function of the deck is to go into Dark Valkyria. That's your tool in the deck that destroys monsters on the field. There's nothing that quite deals with like a set super nimble Mega Hamster like a Dark Valkyria that's been Ultimate Offering or supervised. So typically not two of them because it does interact with your Sangan and your two Dark Valkyrias, and also because Iron Wall is kind of like a pseudo second and third copy of Shadow Mirror, because the cards that Iron Wall stops are typically all dark effects as well. It stops Dark Arm Dragon. It stops Caius. An important thought with Iron Wall, if you're playing it against a Dark Arm Dragon deck, is look at their graveyard. Take note of how many monsters they have. As soon as the third dark goes there, if you have an Iron Wall set, flip it proactively. That way they can't go, dad, priority, banish, kill your thing. At that point, you've chained your Iron Wall, and they've already gotten their effect off. So as soon as they get their third card in the graveyard, before they are able to summon the dad, flip your Iron Wall. Flip your Iron Wall against zombies if they have a proper zombie target and you have a monster in your graveyard. Stop these opportunities preemptively. If you really are going that hard, do it in their standby phase and stop them from Allure of Darknessing. That is a thing you can do that will stop them. And if they don't have, say they Heavy Storm and you have the Starlight Road, or they don't have the one MST or the one Dust Tornado to stop an Iron Wall at that point, you may be giving them dead draws. So just food for thought. There's a good Yu-Gi-Oh player once told me that you play more games of Yu-Gi-Oh with your sideboard than games you don't. So it's not separate from the deck. It is the deck. It's integral to how you play the deck and how you play against other things, because your win percentage can go way up or down depending on how you've sided and how they've sided. Last card in here is kind of a unique one, and also it's filling a little spot that I put in there against decks I was having trouble with. Again, the deck commits to the board a lot, so what's one more continuous trap? They're gonna MST something. They're gonna MST probably his Ultimate Offering is the nice juiciest target, but Scrap Iron eats some MSTs, Supervised does. Blind MST, any of these other back row. So Tuner Scheme is just an immediate +1. It says if they summon a Synchro monster, you take control of it. So against Value Turbo, even if they go banish Vayu and Sirocco, use Vayu effect to get an Armed Wing, you can take that one. So it's just a leg up against decks that use Synchro Summoning as a primary engine of their deck. So that could be also quick draw decks. Like, boy, I've won some games where they go Drill Warrior, I go Tuner Scheme, and then they go Concede. Like, it's a huge +1, and if they've dumped 2 resources into that one thing, that could be like a +2 kind of, because you're using one card to get rid of their monster and monster that they synced with. So, you know, a 3-for-1 kind of, because you're taking that resource from them and you're denying them the 2 that they've used. So for 1 card, you're kind of getting 3 cards, because you're taking their guy as well. So I guess I'll go ahead and look at this most recent RBET, and we'll go how I would decide it. So let's see. First place, Diva Zombies. So, you know, this looks like a prime way to use this Iron Wall for sure. There's a lot of banished effects between the Crows, the Bottomlesses, the Dad, the Book of Lives. I also for sure put in these tuner schemes. Alright, so against this deck. Alright, so the first targets you look at when you're thinking about signing out are, these are the monsters. I guess I'll go over my core. So this is the Gemini Giga core. These 24 cards. And I would never side out any of these 24 cards under any circumstance. This is how your deck works. Like, this is your deck. And taking out any of the cards that make your deck work is stupid. Like, your deck is a toolbox. You either go into Soldier, which has 4 targets, and you can go those when you need to. So you can go into Chevalier when you need to attack over an 1800 or attack over a 1900. You go into Valk when you got to kill a face down. So, you know, you attacked into their hamster, you go into Valk, you slap a Supervise on that bitch, and then you kill the Raikou they just got. You know, you go into Butterfly when you want to reuse your Gigaplants or you want to reuse your Soldier. You go into Toon Magician when you only have access to the level 4 engine in the deck, and you can go into your extra deck now. So never take out any of these 24 cards. Maybe there's some rare case where you take out a Reinforced Truth against a really bad matchup for Reinforced Truth, but honestly, off the top of my head, I want all of these cards. These are the cards that make the deck function. So now we're going to look at, you know, what cards do we take out. So the typical suite of cards that one could take out looks something like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 11 cards come out. Potentially. You know, Solemn against maybe Chainburn or something. Alright, so that deck we just looked at. We'll just go here. So they have a lot of targeted removal. So they have, you know, Caius targets, Dad targets, Wing Blast targets. So I'm keeping in the Titanium. They have a lot of access to things that banish, so I'm for sure putting in the Iron Walls. This is probably a Shadow Mirror matchup. This is probably a Grand Mole matchup. This is probably a 7 Tools matchup. Maybe not Dust Tornado. So I need 7. Again, like I said, we put in Iron Walls, we take out at least 1 Bottomless. These are kind of like Bottomless. They kind of fulfill that role, but they give you their guy instead. So that's why I play it. It's a cool card. I'm all about siding out Upstart Goblins. It's deck space for you to make your deck better against their deck. You don't always have to side it out, but yeah. I kind of like the scrap iron. So I would probably side this against this deck. You're going to want Iron Walls for their cards that banish. You're going to want Tuner Schemes for their main deck engines that synchro summon. The zombie half is going to use their Plague Spreader to get something, and they have 2 Divas to synchro with as well. This deck is all about synchro summoning, so if you can interrupt that, that's probably going to be important. Alright, we're going to reset the deck. Let's go to the next deck. Bayou Turbo. Alright, so Bayou Turbo is usually pretty easy. So if they see Morphing Jar in game 1, I typically side it out. Just play with their head, make them think you have it, but I usually side it out because they've seen it and they're going to play around it if you draw it, typically. Bayou Turbo, again, has a lot of targeted removal in their Chaos Sorcerer, their Raikou, their Gale, their Books of Moon, their Brain Control. So I think this is a Titanial matchup. I also think this is a Sangan matchup because they don't have a ton of Backrow. They're not running a very large trap suite. So that means that you're probably going to be safe to go off with your Lone Fire Blossoms. Not all the time, but you're more likely to go off with your Lone Fire Blossoms than you aren't because they don't run that much back row. Come on, Dueling Book. What are you doing to me? Let's see. This is for sure a Grand Mole matchup. Very good against their Armed Wings, their Raikou Hamster, their Chaos Sorcerer if they don't have a lot of lights to get. Okay. Alright, so Morphing Jar out, these out, one of these out, this. Probably Unleash. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Might be a Dust Tornado out. That's probably how I'd side against Bayou. Alright, let's see next. Frogs. Alright, so Frogs, your best card against Frogs is going to be this Titanial. Titanial is so good against Frogs. They can't enemy controller you, they can't brain control you, they can't Caius you. Like, it just kind of stops all of their main deck engine cards from doing anything to you. And if you have Giga Titanial on turn 1 with a Supervise, that's 3 negates, because you can sacrifice Giga, then Titanial. Usually you're going to sacrifice Giga, then Titanial, so on the following turn you can get back your Titanial with that Giga. But you can have up to 3 negates. Alright, so Frogs. If they're Trap Frogs, if they're running Threatening Roars and Wing Blasts and stuff, 7 tools isn't bad. Like, I would probably take out these. Morphing Jar's very good. Sangan's good because it gives you access to your strongest plays in your deck. Mirror Force isn't that great, honestly. So I'm putting in Fossil Dynas, Prohibition. This just depends on it. Am I playing Hero Frog? Then Iron Walls are going in. Am I playing against Substitute Frog? This is really strong to call Substitute against that deck. Having in 1 Iron Wall to stop Caiuses isn't bad. The games typically go pretty long, and you're going to play against Caius. But really, it's Fossil Dyna's Prohibition and your Titanial are going to be your main way you're going to combat frogs. Because on top, your engine is pretty likely to go off. They do not run Backrow. They do not run Effect Negation. So you're going to get games where you attack a lot with your soldiers or get a lot of activations with your Gigaplant to get your Titanial. So these are very good floodgate cards to prevent frogs from doing their thing. So that's probably that's probably it. If I'm feeling froggy, either out Unleash or out One Bottomless. Probably that type of deck. Alright, what's next? Lightsworns. So Lightsworns, we don't need in this Dust Tornado. We don't need in any deck that has very little back row. Like Morphing Char's so good, so I leave it in. And those decks also typically leave in your Sanguine and your Titanial because you want to have access to your main engine and you want your main engine to be as strong as possible. Because you're likely to get it against those decks, and you're likely to need it against them building their strong boards on the following turn. Lightsworns, this is going in for sure. Grand Mole ain't bad. Let me see. Honestly, this is probably about it. The main deck is pretty good. I have a pretty good matchup against Lights and Fairies, and if I get one of these to stick, that win percentage goes up pretty big. But like something like that, honestly, not a lot to side. Your main deck engine gets to go off pretty often and is pretty good against it. Your Valks get to kill their Raikos. Your Gemini Sparks get to stop their plays. Your Starlight Roads stop their Celestias and their Judgment Dragons. So the worst thing is the deck doesn't have a super efficient way to play around Honests. You can go into like Brute Drago and attack into it, and then get back your Gigaplant after it gets Honested. But like, man, I played a game against locals last week where I got Honested 4 times because they had Beckoning Light, and I just, you lose those games, and that was rough. But yeah, not a huge side against Lightsworns. You gotta leave in your MST to stop their Royal Decree. And in game 2 or 3, if you're going first, maybe leave one of these in. But yeah, let's go next. This is a quick draw dandy hamster Raiko Caius deck. So immediately the cards that are good are going to be these, this Titanial, this Morphing Jar, these Sangin. That's what I want this for. With triple Caius and Drill Warrior, honestly, I like the Iron Walls. This might be a tuner scheme matchup because they got just the one quick draw, but they got Debris Dragon and they have quick draw, so they have access. They don't run. This is a weird deck. Your biggest tool is going to be your Titanial. Your Reinforced Druids are going to be really good in that matchup. Probably put into Grand Mole. Weird deck. These 5 in, probably out. Yeah, that's probably it. Okay. Diva Heroes. Alright, so the best card against this by far is going to be your Iron Walls. Like, Iron Wall stopping their Miracle Fusion, their Caius's, their Dad, their Malicious. The only card that it is not good against is Plague Spreader, because they can just keep using their Plague Spreader. Yeah, but for sure, I'm going to want in this Grand Mole so I can stop their Synchro plays and their Fusion plays. This might be a 7 tools matchup. You know, they're running enough things that can interrupt what we're doing that if I could stop their thing to interrupt us, that'll probably be pretty big in the game. Alright, boop, boop, boop. Probably the Morphing Jar. Just, we don't want to fill their graveyard, give them resources to make this with. They're going to set a lot of cards, so, or use their cards. I mean, they can just play around this Morphing Jar, so it's not a bad side out. Lists are so weird that don't play Gilman. Oh, no, it does play Gilman. Okay. These are a maybe. These are a maybe. If you go first, if you're able to set these on your first turn, yes. If you're not able to set these on your first turn, if you're going second, I probably wouldn't side those in. But yeah, these 4 are your main resource you need to put in. These are probably your 4 weakest cards. Maybe this instead of one of these, or this. Is Stardust very effective against this deck? No. Unleash is good at getting out Stardust. So if you have a deck where landing a Stardust is going to be really effective against them, then leave this in. If it's not, side it out. This card is okay, but it is side outable for sure. Something like that looks fine. Alright. Standard hero beat. Again, any deck that's running Miracle Fusions, these Iron Walls we're putting in, this Grand Mole we're putting in, these Prohibitions we're probably putting in, and this Backrow hate we're putting in. So we're probably going to be taking out the Monster Engine. We're probably going to be taking out these. We might be taking out one Starlight Road. They're going to be setting a lot of cards. We're going to be setting a lot of cards. They're not playing Heavy Storm. So, like, I guess they side Heavy Storm. Interesting. But yeah, we probably side out a Starlight Road, and we probably keep in as much Backrow removal, Floodgate for their deck, and monster that will hate their immediate engine in their deck. So that is probably what I would side against Hero Beat specifically. I mean, sort of the same thing. I mean, look how good Iron Wall is against these Dark Callings, these Miracle Fusions, these D-Prisons, these Caius's, Bottomless. Yeah, Iron Wall for sure. Hamster for, Grand Mole for sure. This might be a Backrow hate matchup. Alright. So because they got a pretty big suite of Backrow, this is probably taking these things out. It might be leave a Titanial in, because they have a lot of targeted removal. I'm on the fence. You can take out Titanial. This is going to be about drawing a really good mix of monster and Backrow, so you're able to fight their plays efficiently. Like, that's probably how the matchup's going to... That probably looks good. That if you want to keep it in Titanium to stop their Caiuses and their Compulses and their... I don't know. It's a tough one. Something like that, probably. Alright, that's it for the top 8. Let's go over Gladiator Beasts, I guess. So, Gladiator Beasts, I'm going to be putting in Backrow fight cards and Prohibition. That's probably it. Maybe Grand Mall. We're going to take out these cards that aren't going to be very effective. We're going to take out... probably Upstart Goblin. I'd probably do this. I want like this is one of the best cards against them. These are very good against them. Dark Bribe is pretty good against them. Like this is probably the board I would go against Glad Beasts. Dragon Turbo. The most effective card is going to be your Iron Walls, your Fossil Dynas, probably your Grand Mole. They're not going to be sitting on a back row, so if they haven't seen your Morphing Jar, leave it in. If they have seen your Morphing Jar, side it out. Dragon Turbo, the Titanial is really not as important. Sangan might be. Probably something like this. Leave in this this Dust Tornado MST so you can stop their future fusion potentially. And you could even call this on Red MD. It wouldn't be that bad. Yeah, maybe something like that against Dragon Turbo. But basically just think of the cards that you can, these are the obvious culprits. You take out these cards usually against decks that set a lot of back row. If you're playing against the Hero Beat, the Bayou Turbo, put those in or take those out. If you're playing against decks that don't run a lot of back row, these are pretty good cards. You're generally going to be discarding 1, they'll discard 4, and that's a +3. It's really strong. So, take out your upstarts, your bottomlesses. If it's not heavily back row decks, potentially your Dust Tornadoes. If it's against a back row fight deck that you don't think will run Heavy Storm, take out your Starlight Road. Unleash your power. Mirror Force in fringe cases. Sometimes against Monarchs, it's okay. It's not the best. I like Scrap Iron. I usually leave it in. There are some matchups you side out, but it typically catches people off guard, and then you can get multiple turns of value out of it, and I really like that card. Look, if I missed anything, let me know. If there's specific matchups you want me to go over, maybe I'll make another one of these. But at least you got some ideas about what I'm siding out, what I'm putting in, why I put cards in. Hey, look, Genaroso, good luck in your tournament. I hope this was helpful. I hope everyone has a wonderful night.